As many of you are no doubt aware, 2 weeks ago, something somewhat controversial occurred. I personally did not see it. I'm glad that I personally did not see it, as I know it would have been potentially very difficult for me. But of course, I've heard a great deal about it since. Many have spoken to me. They've given me their thoughts regarding what they saw and heard over those 2 hours. So although I didn't witness it for myself, I'm not entirely ignorant of what occurred. To those who don't know what I'm talking about, I am referring, of course, to the May 16th premiere of the movie Godzilla. I am a proud Japanese American. I grew up watching the Godzilla movies, the real Godzilla movies. I had the toys. I had the rubber mask that I wore over my head at Halloween. I am a true Godzilla believer. What happened on May 16th? With this Hollywood reboot of Godzilla is nothing short of one of the most egregious examples of cultural misappropriation I have ever witnessed. As a young Japanese boy who adored Godzilla, I can tell you, I watched Godzilla. I know Godzilla. This computer-generated, bloated lizard in theaters right now, he is no Godzilla. Whew, thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I appreciate that. I feel much better now. Today, we are celebrating the end of the religious education year. We are celebrating also our high school graduates. We are honoring their past, what they have worked so hard to achieve, while also celebrating with them and looking forward with great anticipation to a bright future that awaits them, a future that still lies before them. It seems fitting then to me that we would take this moment in time to consider our future as a faith, to consider the future of Unitarian Universalism. This is a topic that has been making headlines in certain publications quite recently, as some of you are no doubt aware. Take, for example, the recent article in the UU World magazine written by Teresa Cooley. Coincidentally, in one of those bizarre small world moments, I randomly met Teresa Cooley's sister on an airplane in Texas 2 weeks ago. Her name is Cass. She is not a UU, and we were not traveling to the same destination. But she was my seatmate on the plane. The universe is a funny place sometimes. Anyway, in this article, Reverend Teresa Cooley points out that U.S. membership in UU churches has been on the decline since 2008. This despite the fact that the general population of the United States has grown by 15 million over that same time. This downward turn in UU membership was also recently reported in an article in Boston Magazine, an article that again mentioned Teresa Cooley. The article starts like this for those who haven't read it yet. Once the church of intellectual rock stars and progressive New Englanders, Unitarian Universalism has struggled in recent times to convince people they need it. The article goes on to state that there was a recognition around 2012 that the Unitarian Universalist Church was in crisis, in spite of being one of the most progressive churches, with a rich legacy of attracting the sorts of forward-thinking, open-minded intellectuals many of us like to think we are. The UUs were veering toward extinction. People weren't coming to services. Those who did weren't staying. Here's some more good news. According to several recent polls, nearly 1 in 5 Americans, that's nearly 20% of Americans, now claim no religious identity whatsoever. And that number is sharply rising. And contrary to popular belief, Gen Xers like me are not returning to the church once they have kids, the way that baby boomers did before them. And the data suggests that millennials will not act any different. So you all know what this means, right? It means we have them right where we want them. Some of you may think I'm joking. I am absolutely serious. This situation reminds me of that old story of two British shoe salesmen in the early 1900s who were sent by their shoe company to Africa to determine the prospects of expanding their business. After spending one day in Africa, the first shoe salesman sent a telegram back to London. The telegram read, "Situation hopeless. They don't wear shoes here." The other salesman also sent a telegram back. His telegram stated, "Glorious opportunity. No one has shoes yet." Don't misunderstand me. I recognize the challenges that face our faith are great. I am not underestimating them. But in the deepest parts of my heart, I know, I am certain, we have everything we need right here and right now to face and overcome these challenges. But success will require change. But change is nothing new. Who we were is not who we are. Who we are is not who we will become. So it is, has been, and ever shall be. Unitarian Universalism is a faith on the move, and oh, the places we'll go. As a religion that believes revelation is not sealed, we are a religion that was designed to change with the times, to become what people need when they need it. If you have a gray hymnal next to you, please take it. I'm going to ask you to open to this page. I think Davina pulled out my bookmark. I'm calling you out, Davina. It's okay. Go to this page if you would. There is no page number. It is near the beginning. It immediately follows the preface. The words at the top of the page read, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote." Again, there is no page number, but it immediately follows the preface. I'll give you a moment to find it. Sounds as if most of us have found it. On this page is our associational covenant. What that means is this is the promise that UUCJ has made with other member congregations of our Unitarian Universalist Association. Many of these words are quite familiar to most of us. You'll notice it contains our 7 principles, probably the most famous text among UUs. It also contains our 6 sources. Both the 7 principles and the 6 sources comprise our associational covenant. But that's not where the covenant ends. Often overlooked in this covenant is the final paragraph. I invite you to read along with me silently at your seats while I read out loud, starting with the word grateful. Grateful for the religious pluralism, which enriches and ennobles our faith, we are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. The propositions in that second line are vitally important. We are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. Think for a moment about what these words mean. I have found a couple of revelations in these words. 1, our Unitarian Universalist forebears had the humbleness to admit that their understanding was not perfect when this religion was born, nor is it perfect now. We can and must go deeper. 2, as UUs, we are committed to expanding our vision. We must continually strive to see more than we see now. As our understanding deepens over time, as our vision expands over time, we can't help but be changed. As we can see from this covenant, space and room for this change has been built into our theological infrastructure. Unlike fundamentalist religions, our theological waters are not still. They refuse to be stagnant. We are not a lake. We are a river. And if we follow the current, oh, the places we will go. I see a bright future for Unitarian Universalism. I see the opportunity for both explosive and substantial growth for our faith. But it will require change. And I understand that change can create anxiety, even among people who welcome that change. Change can be a really big, scary monster. Which brings us back to the king of the monsters, Godzilla. For those who don't know the Godzilla mythos, it goes like this. Godzilla is an enormous prehistoric sea monster who looks like a dinosaur. He is accidentally awakened by radiation from nuclear experiments performed by Japanese scientists. The radiation serves to further augment his already frightening strength and power. Once awakened by these nuclear experiments, Godzilla runs amok, destroying Japan. The Japanese military is powerless to stop him. But over time, and there have been over 30 different Godzilla movies produced to date, over time, the character and nature of Godzilla changes. He transforms. When other giant monsters begin arriving on the scene, from under the sea or from Monster Island or from outer space, it is Godzilla who defends the Japanese people from these threats. Over time, a remarkably short period of time, Godzilla transforms from being the scourge of Tokyo to its greatest champion. The reason I bristle a bit when I see Godzilla in the hands of Hollywood is because Godzilla is a uniquely Japanese invention. Only the Japanese can truly understand Godzilla because Japan created Godzilla. And in many ways, Godzilla created modern-day Japan. You see, Godzilla is a symbol of Japan's entrance, struggle, and ultimate acceptance of the nuclear age. As most of us know, the nuclear age was born in 1945 in Japan with a vengeance. The Japanese people bear the terrifying distinction of being the only people in the history of this planet to have been attacked by nuclear weapons. My 75-year-old mother was a child in Japan when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were obliterated. No other people on this planet can understand the trauma, the fear, the physical and psychological devastation of being nuked, of seeing entire cities annihilated. The only thing left behind, the shadows of cowering women and children incinerated by radiation. Only the Japanese understand this. Thus, the genesis of Godzilla. Godzilla was designed, he was created to be a reification of Japan's fears of the power of the atom. A frightening, gigantic, unstoppable monster born of and empowered by nuclear radiation, visiting death and destruction upon a hapless Japan. Consider this little-known fact. To further emphasize Godzilla's relationship to Japan's nuclear holocaust, the original creators of Godzilla purposely designed his skin to have scales and scars that resembled the skin of the survivors of Hiroshima. As Americans, we cannot understand the trauma suffered by the Japanese people in 1945. But then, post-1945, an amazing thing happens. Something that, to me, perfectly demonstrates the resiliency and the grit and the courage of the Japanese people. Less than a decade after the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in 1954, Japan begins a nuclear power program. That's right, Japan decides to start making nuclear reactors. Japan, who understood the dangers of nuclear power more intimately than any other people on Earth, overcame its fears and saw the potential for good that nuclear power possesses. By building nuclear power plants, Japan used this as a new energy source that was one of the factors that helped them become an economic superpower in the course of just a couple of decades after they were almost wiped off the planet. Not coincidentally, it is during these years that we see the shift in the character of Godzilla in his portrayal. He goes from being portrayed as a villain to being a hero. A dangerous and unwieldy hero, but a hero and a protector nonetheless. This is not a political sermon about the virtues or vices of nuclear power. It's complicated, I know. We're not going there. Don't get hung up on that point. The point I'm trying to drive to this morning is this. Sometimes we fear change, especially change that appears to represent the end or destruction of a way of life that we hold dear. But paradoxically, sometimes by grabbing hold of that change, by embracing that change, you may find your own salvation. Change will not destroy all you hold dear. It may simply transform it. But in the end, it may protect and save the deepest core of what you love so that it may be passed on to future generations. Unitarian Universalism is changing, and oh, the places it will go. I hope to speak more specifically about those places in the future, but one thing that none of us need fear right now, one thing that will never change, we are and always will be a faith rooted in love. If we forget our commitment to love one another, then our faith is as good as dead. So as we struggle with these concepts of change, as we learn more about who we are, where we are going, why we are going there, I encourage you, remember love. To grow our faith, we as individuals must grow in our capacity to love. We cannot become satisfied and complacent with our capacity to love. We must stretch ourselves ever to love more, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. That is my promise to you this morning. Let's see if I can help. I used my Godzilla breath. Got rid of that fire. I almost got to the end of the sermon before that thing lit up. Almost. To grow our faith, we must grow in love. We cannot become satisfied and complacent with our current capacity to love. We must stretch ourselves to love more, even when it hurts. And that is my promise to you this morning. I will stretch myself to love more. May that be our continuing promise to one another. Blessed be.